Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've done a Tafo talk just because I've been so busy. And a lot of my Tafo talks, because I have access to Yahoo, I figure might as well use their higher productions and create nicer videos out of what they have. So that's why this has been a little bit slower. And in general, I've just been really busy. So I figure coaching Mango at Genesis 4 would most likely be a conflict of interest for Yahoo, in that I probably wouldn't be able to use their resources in their space to talk about it, so I might as well do it here. So this is my first official major tournament where I was officially on as a coach, whereas I've been kind of the pseudo coach for Mango, where I did it at SmashCon, Big House, and Smash Summit. The last Smash Summit, I believe, which was Smash Summit 3, and then I wasn't there at UGC or DreamHack. So if you look at my resume, although I can't really take that much credit, but at SmashCon he finished first. I guess at Shine I did too. Shine he finished third, which I think was BS because of the SFAT Shines, but whatever. First at Big House, and then fourth at SmashCon, or Smash Summit 3. And then he got 4th and 13th at the two events I didn't go to. So it was going to be really interesting because there was a lot of pressure that was going to be put on me because now he's officially has a coach, I'm his coach, and the expectations were higher than ever. So I kind of figured if Mango didn't get into grand finals at least at Genesis 4, I would have considered it a failure, and I think most people would agree. That's just the minimum he should be getting with a coach and with the amount of practice he's been putting in, that I consider anything worse than grand finals to be a failure on my book. And I'm pretty sure I would have gotten a lot of hate if he ended up finishing 5th or whatever. So the experience has been good so far. So I guess going into the event, it's a lot of, if you guys listen to Mango stream, a lot of the coaching I do is mainly on site just to make sure that he is game ready. But going into the event, we do talk like once or twice a day via Facebook chat and Twitter DMs, and we just basically talk about little things like, what do you think about this matchup? Or I noticed that you were doing this on stream. What do you think about Leffen when he does this? Like, can you counterplay that? It's not me really telling him specific advice. It's more me asking questions about things I noticed that were kind of a bit of a struggle, or if things were working right, I go okay, yeah, you seem to be doing really well here. Why is that? And the main reason why I ask those questions is because with the way that Mango operates, it's really difficult to tell him things. If you guys watched the frame video where Mango asked Leffen about frame data, you can see that even though Leffen presents himself very articulate and it's a very straightforward explanation, Mango immediately tunes it out. And so the best way to engage Mango is to ask him questions and to get him to think out loud. And the big thing about that is that he internalizes a lot, and so he'll have a lot of great ideas, but if he doesn't talk it out loud, he may forget it, or that idea he may have may not be reinforced. So let's say against in a play session with Lucky or Leffen, he discovers something about Fox. So he talks about it in his head. He may forget it, and so I have to ask him these questions to say hey, so why did that work out so well? And as soon as he verbalizes it out loud, it reinforces the knowledge he learns, and so that's the way we kind of operated on a pre-tournament basis. On the flip side, on game day, or game weekend rather, I just kind of laid out his schedule for him. I said, okay, here are the times that you are going to be having to play, and one of the big things we talked about was doubles and whether or not he was going to do it. And I talked to SUJ too, and my concern for them was, I know that people are going to kill me because they love doubles, but I looked at the schedule for Saturday, and aside from a small 2-hour break, Mango would have literally played from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. And given that, we decided to cut doubles so that he could come in at 2, and he'd be a lot more fresh going into singles on day 2, where we really needed him to go into winners, and that was our goal. And if you look at the double schedule, although Armada's a monster, It's really hard to play doubles right before singles, and I actually do think that affected Armada's play at Big House. So there's like the ongoing risk, and what do we really want out of this event? And it was to win Genesis. So that's why we decided to skip doubles. So going into the event, day one and day two, I was pretty busy doing my other stuff. I was playing in pools, doing Yahoo coverage. But it does. I mean, if my line of reasoning is that I can do those things because if Mango can't even finish the round two pools or do day one without losing, then he's not in proper shape to win the tournament, period. But it was mostly just to keep tabs, keep him in the right mindset, remove him from any distractions, and just play out his bracket. Day two was pretty interesting, and if you guys recall, day two was round two pools where he had to play Ryobi and Fiction, and I pretty much trusted him to get through that without really much thinking. But we debriefed after that, and one of the big concerns for Mango, he really took this seriously, was that one of his matches against Ryobi, a Peach player, was really close. And we kind of hashed it out, and what Mango was telling me was like, what, like, I'm thinking too much, I'm getting into my own head. So I was like, okay, and then one thing that Cassidy pointed out was that what Alex and Lucky do for Mango is that they kind of make fun of him, they make jokes, and they keep the atmosphere light, so that Mango, kind of takes it a little less seriously in a way that allows him to not overthink things. So going into round two pools, top 64 bracket, I kind of just said, Mango, like, let's have a little bit of fun, like, you practice well, and once you drink a tall can of Bud Light so that it loosens you up. And so that ended up working out pretty well. If you guys watched the set against KK, it went pretty straightforward. I gave Mango a little bit of Sheik practice, although KK is better than me, but it reinforced ideas for Mango to play Sheik properly, and so that went pretty straightforward, and that was good. And then afterwards, I believe he played Wizrobe on a small TV on the side. And that set, although it was a clean 3-0, I could tell that Mango was not playing his best at all. You guys kind of saw glimmers of it against like other people where he just kept missing inputs. He was doing like back air or forward air instead of like down air. So although it was a 3-0, there were a lot of mistakes that Mango was making. So I was like a little bit nervous, and I was just like thinking like, okay, like what's the issue here? Is it just flubs? Is it just missed inputs? Should I not worry about it too much? But he seemed fine, and it was a 3-0, but frankly it was like way closer than it should have been. And I think the way that Wizzy was playing, Wizzy didn't play like super well either. It just didn't seem like he had much of a game plan against Mango's Falco. It just seemed like he was pretty lost. But frankly, each of those games should have been 2 to 3 stocks, but they ended up being like 1 stock and like somewhat winnable for Wizzy. No offense to Wizzy, but he just overall the game played just didn't look good on his end either. And then we got the Hungrybox, which was the big match of the day. And I think the big thing I tried to emphasize for Mango is that this is the observation that a couple of us have made about him, is that he did well against Hungrybox when he respected him the most. So if you look at Super Smash Con, that's when Hungrybox just finished winning Evo. And so if you win an Evo, you garner some respect, and immediately after that at SmashCon, you can tell based on Mango's gameplay, he wasn't scared of Hungrybox, but he respected him enough that he didn't give him any free openings. And I just kind of reinforced saying like, hey, like, I know you can win. Hungrybox has this little injury, but like you still have to respect his gameplay and play your game plan. No fooling around too much. Control center stage, don't give him grabs, because the likelihood of him winning per each grab goes significantly higher if you look at the stats. And so that's why I just really emphasize for him. And for Mango, it takes like a little bit of like trial and error for him to kind of reinforce those ideas. So like I remember, I think he like immediately jumped in, got grabbed, and Hungrybox missed the rest. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so much of a momentum swing for us. But then if you watch, like he settles down, he plays how he should. And then Yoshi's story was a little bit of a scare because he literally threw 3 stocks. So that's like one thing I'm going to have to figure out is how do we control Mango when he has a lead? Because sometimes he feels himself too much and he ends up throwing away stocks. And when you play against like an Armada or a Leffen or even a Mewtwo King, like you can't afford to have, we can't afford to have that happen. So that's like the other thing we had going. So day two ended up really well. We ended up in winners. That was really awesome. And in day three, unfortunately, Mango didn't really sleep that well, and he didn't party. And the schedule's really weird. So um, because it started so late, I was actually okay with Mango, celebrating a little bit and then sleeping a little bit later. Because if you wake up too early, then by the time it gets to finals, like you're tired because it's like the end of the day. So like imagine if you woke up at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and then finals is like 9 p.m. and it's like, okay, like you're out of energy by then. But for whatever reason, he woke up in the middle of the night, didn't get stable rest. So the whole day was just like kind of recharging and vegging out and just kind of relaxing and kind of keeping the energy and stress level low. And so just like feeding him through the day, giving him light snacks, and then balancing his food intake before we got to top eight. And then we started practicing. He started playing with Joey. And then top eight happened. We opted to pick Fox. I just thought that made the most sense. Initially, he was deciding between Falco and Fox, but I think just looking at pass sets overall, I just felt most confident in his Fox initially. And at least in winners, it looked pretty solid. The first two games, went back and forth. Mango won Dreamland, and honestly won that. I thought it was going to be like a pretty good chance that we could make it to winners finals. Fortunately, the Yoshi stages, Armada just punished a little bit too hard. But those sets and winners semis were actually pretty close, and if Mango just played like a little bit cleaner, I think he could have done it. So it's unfortunate he got into losers, and then he played Leffen, and he's played that matchup so many times that like I really felt like I didn't have to do much to really just prep him for that. The main thing I just told him is, hey, like you tend to tilt when you get shine spiked, and like I want you to spend just a little bit more time. Like if you find yourself getting emotionally tilted or wanting to force too much after a shine spike, just like stay on the cloud for like an extra second and just recollect your thoughts and don't get tilted. Because like Leffen's gonna try to tilt you. And then I also just told him not to overchase Leffen. It was a little bit of a scary set because Mango kept trying to re-tech rolls with forward smash, and Leffen kept tech rolling in, and that ended up ending a lot of Mango's combos in the early set. But then he made the adjustments later on, and then he finally won it. So I was really happy for him that he kept his mental composure together, because like I think many other Falco players would have just given up, especially if you saw how big a lead that Leffen had in Game 4 and Game 5. I literally thought like most other Falcos would just give up here. So I have to give Mango tons of props for fighting through that. For Game 4, so he ends up winning that. We're really happy. Biggest complaint that Mango was giving me at that point was, hey, like I'm a little bit nervous, like I'm jittery, I just can't focus. And so I was like, okay, like what can we do here? He had a Red Bull, and I was just thinking like, well, okay, like what can we do to like make him stop thinking like so much and stop being so nervous? So I was just like, okay, like I'm gonna have to find him a shot and find him some beer, because like that's like the only logical thing I could think that could calm him down. So that's why if you guys were seeing me, I was like running around everywhere. I was looking for beer like somewhere in the venue. We ended up getting him a shot. Shout out to the one Mango Cloud9 fanboy that ended up giving Mango a shot. And so we gave Mango a shot, and in about 10 minutes he had Hungrybox, and we just really emphasized the same things like stage control and no grabs. Unfortunately, in the beginning of Battlefield, he ended up dying like 3 times very stupidly. But then, like, if you watch the set, he doesn't give up like another stock on Battlefield, and pretty much focused on his game plan: center stage, no grabs, don't give grabs, and that's what we just really focused on. And he ended up winning, so that was good. So Mango started hitting a groove, and then for Muti King, I was thinking, hey, like we might need Fox for the rest of the way. I know that Falco is probably the right pick here, but I think we're gonna need the Fox in the back pocket. So we discussed Fox, and we said like, what do we want to do for FD? And we had a couple of ideas running around that we were talking back and forth of. We might use it for a future tournament, but he was really confident in his Falco, and so when we discussed counterpicking in stages, I said, okay, start off Fox, and if he goes FD, go Falco, and that's going to be our game plan. And I think that switching Fox and Falco back and forth made Muta King uncomfortable, and I really liked that play. The moment I saw Muta King strike to FOD, I was incredibly excited. I thought pretty much as long as in my head when I saw that the strike to FOD, I was like in my head, as long as Mango doesn't give up too much momentum on FD, then we're good. And lo and behold, like Muta King doesn't have any chance to win on FOD in my opinion if Mango's playing decent, because he just can't hit hard enough. So I thought that that was an easy pick for us. I was so happy when I saw FOD. And then Mango, like Falco, he's just like, okay, like if I just don't get grabbed, like I can win this. And that's the discussion we had. And you guys saw FD game 2, and that was really cool. So I was really happy. And like once I saw Mango win, like win a game on FD, I knew the set was pretty much over. I think it's just way too hard for Marth to win Dreamland twice in a row. And so I was just like, okay, like we're good. So I was really happy Mango's heating up. Unfortunately, so Mango wins 3-1, and so we get to grand finals, and you guys saw me on the clipboard. A lot of people were wondering what was I doing, what was I telling him, and I think one of the biggest scary things was happening for me, because I looked at Mango's face, and I was trying to get him to focus, but like it was really hard for him to look at me and to stay focused, and I could tell that he was mentally fatiguing. Because he just played like 3 god sets like within an hour. So I was trying to like figure out a way if I could stall it or anything. I was trying to get him water to get him refocused, and I think in hindsight I would have requested like to the TOs, like, can you guys have the commentators just talk a little bit longer, and can we get Mango to recoup for like another like 5 minutes, because like I know that if Mango even won like set 1, I didn't think he would have had much of a chance in set 2, just the way that I was looking at him and how like hard for him it was to focus at that moment. It would have been really great if I could have gone another 5 minutes, but I think that's like a lesson learned for me. So what was on that clipboard? So given what I noticed in game 1, or the previous set, I just didn't really think that I think if Mango was, what Mango was telling me was that he was going to shoot lasers more and play like more of that kind of game. And given that he did well on Dreamland and won that stage, and the way that he was playing against Muta King and kind of like the mid screen, I just thought that Battlefield and Pokemon Stadium were going to be the priority picks. And I picked Battlefield because of the fact that Mango hasn't lost on that stage in over a year to Armada, and Stadium I thought could have been the proper spacing. And I thought that I was confident in the Fox pick based on the winner's set, and so that's why we picked Fox. And I was okay with Dreamland, but it just didn't end up working out. So if you're wondering what I was emphasizing, I specifically wrote on the clipboard, no Yoshis, Battlefield, Pokemon Stadium, and Dreamland were the priority picks, and that's why I was pointing to the clipboard for. And I emphasize certain things. I emphasize shine grab, like drill, watch out, don't do careless snares. What else did I write on that clipboard? I always said like be careful of his jabs and crotch cancel, and also watch out for Armada trying to shark your jumps with reads. And so those are like the main points I had for him. But a lot of people are saying like, well, like those aren't, Mango has a peach problem. I don't really think so. If you guys watch the set and you examine the situations, a lot of the situations that Mango could have capitalized on or punished if he was just like half a second late on the reaction and reading the position and reading the options. So I don't think it's that much of an issue up ahead. Armada did play well, so I'm going to like give him all the credit. I don't want to make it sound like I'm Johnning, but I think Mango's okay with Peach. I don't think it's an issue for him. So those are my thoughts on it. But overall, it was like a really fun event. I was definitely really emotionally invested in coaching. I thought it was really fun. If you guys read my Twitter, I really like seeing other people succeed, and I also learned a lot And Mingo and I are communicating a lot. In the future, he like let me know like, hey, like if you really believe in a stage or a character that much, like just like be more strict with me and be meaner about it so that I'm gonna do it. And so the fact that he's giving me that authority means a lot to me. And next time I'm gonna make a more. In the case of this, instance, I said like go Battlefield, go Stadium, but I guess he felt that I wasn't being firm enough with it, that he didn't really believe in the pick. And so next time I have to say, hey Mango, you have to go Battlefield, you have to go Stadium, because look, it's not working out for you on Yoshi's. You're down 7-11 now in the past year. Battlefield's been a really successful stage, like you should go for that, or you need to go for that. So the way that we communicate, I'm still learning. Usually I used to just suggest things like calmly when I wasn't in this role, but because I'm officially in this type of role, I do need to be more authoritative, and Mango's allowing me to be more authoritative. So just like a bunch of little things, and we're very excited for 2017. To go fourth, and 13th to end the year, although it's not as bad as like going 17th at HCC. We're super excited to see what we can do in 2017. I'm like really so hyped, and I hope that we bring home for Cloud9 and for Mango Nation and for Mango the third Evo, even though it's on Saturday. I want him to win a fourth Big House. I want him to win a lot this year, and we're gonna do what we can to do it. So those are just my thoughts on Genesis, and I hope you guys enjoyed, just like what was kind of going behind the scenes.